What's that sound you hear? That's the sound of thousands of hearts breaking as we realize that Chucky is still an insufferable SOB. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. The sixth episode of Chucky Season 2 is dropped. It is called He Is Risen Indeed. And for me, this is 100% the best episode that has happened this season. It is also one of the saddest episodes that happened this season, but we won't get ahead of ourselves. We'll get to the back end of that eventually. So where we pick up is that this shows us what exactly happened on that night when Andy drove that truck over that cliff. At the beginning of the season, we saw Andy with all the Tiffany doll and with all the Chucky dolls in the back, and he chooses to drive the cliff off, and he does it in the flashback. Does it in the name of Kyle, because for him, he still believes Kyle is dead. You drive the truck off, and then what we see is that a huge, it's below a cross, and a few of the Chuckies survive. The Chuckies start pulling Andy out of the truck, sort of keep him alive, and then the truck explodes with about the majority of the Chucky dolls that were there, out of the 70 plus that were there. A great deal of them explode in that explosion. And so we then come to present day where we see Lexley and Devin outside seeing Andy being tortured by the Colonel. The Colonel Chucky is a bald Chucky. Voice, I don't know who the voice is. Someone's going to have to tell me who the voice is, but it doesn't sound like it's Brad Dourif. But he's being voiced and sort of being a caricature of someone who has suffered terrible PTSD. Very numb, very apocalypse now. The few Chuckies that did make it out to sort of continue and hatch this plan that Dr. Mixter and the Colonel have sort of been tortured for the most part, and you can see the body parts have been strewn all over this torture palace that they have of Andy. Andy has been tortured for about a year now. They've been cutting pieces off of him, and this Colonel has been eating him. He's been eating the flesh. He is Chucky if Chucky just stopped giving a damn. He's way more demented, way more twisted. There are no rules for the Colonel, and so the Colonel has been both torturing Andy, but also kind of like torturing and collecting the Chuckies and using them almost like as he kills them, he gains his souls. He keeps ears of them around his neck. It's very, very much Apocalypse Now. And a little bit of Universal Soldier, a little bit too. But he has lost it. And he is thinking that he was in some massive war. But what we learn is that he doesn't have an affinity for Chucky Prime. In the conversation that he and Dr. Mixter have, who, I was correct, Dr. Mixter was a part of Charles Lee Ray's life. She was the therapist there when he was 8, and sort of she's now trying to continue and help guide Charles Lee Ray. We have to remember with these souls were put into these dolls, and then anything that they learned or anything that occurred to them post a certain event, they don't remember. But there's still a bit of a connection. Dr. Mixter tells the Colonel that Chucky Prime is on their way there with Tiffany. They've escaped that home, and they're on their way there. And you can see the Colonel gets a little upset because he's like, "That's not Chucky Prime." He goes on a diatribe. He's like, "That Chucky Prime got stuck in Tanika. He's been letting Tiffany kind of drag him by the balls. He's not about the life that I'm about." So he is feeling that he is the greatest Chucky, and that he should be, as Chucky Alpha should be Chucky Prime, and that he should no longer be called that. Dr. Mixter has to sort of remind Chucky that we need to go ahead and make a move to get you into one of these kids, because every doll that you kill, every doll that you sort of torture and take off the board, puts you one step closer to extinction. That while you may feel like you are Chucky Prime or now the new Chucky, the main Alpha Chucky, you're gonna leave yourself a window where you don't have anyone to sort of take over and soul swap with. And so what we learned is there's really only 3 Chuckies left on the board, 4 if you count Charles Lee inside of Nika. It's the Colonel, it's Buff Chucky, and then it's the good Chucky, as Jake has sort of pinned the Chucky that he has. The Colonel and Dr. Mixter have decided that, like, Colonel's like, it's go time now. I need to go kill these kids. I need to just go do it myself. He's like, I don't know where the Scout Chucky or the Buff Chucky is, Dr. Mixer tells her the buff Chucky's been killed, but the scout Chucky's the good guy Chucky. But he's like, all right, screw it, I gotta go handle it myself. So he asks Dr. Mixer to take him, and they go off. That's when Devin and Lexi go in to rescue Andy. Andy is having some PTSD himself. He doesn't quite remember Devin. Yeah, they had a small interaction in the first season, but he doesn't quite remember him. He's just lost and been tortured. He does ask about Kyle, but Devin lets him know that Kyle is dead. As far as he knows Kyle is dead, blew up. We go back to the school, and Nadine and Jake are there with all the rest of the school kids, and Father Bryce has made a declaration that he's going to lock down the school. Everybody has to be in their rooms, and he's locking them up. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And he's becoming a very totalitarian society, and he's choosing that the best way to handle all of this is just to shut it down. Jake gets accosted or confronted by some of the friends of Trevor, because Trevor has gone missing. He's dead, but they don't know that. But Trevor's gone missing, and she sort of blames Jake and kind of wants to check him for it. And Jake's like, I don't know what happened to your friend. At this point, Father Bryce then notices Dr. Mixter with the Colonel version of Chucky. He's already seen the good Chucky with the red hair, the normal one, quote unquote. And he sees this one bald. He's like, what is this? And after a little conversation with Jake, who kind of realizes that Dr. Mixter is in on it at that point, Father Bryce checks Dr. Mixter and is like, why is this doll here? And she kind of goes on, is like, no, he's supposed to be here. I use him in my therapy sessions. And he sort of goes along with that, even though he's like, well, that's a weird looking doll. Where's the hair? It's like, don't question my methods or how we got here. She is very much the Jason Voorhees' mom to Jason Voorhees just being brought around into the school. Devin and Lexi bring Andy to the school, and they know that with the rules that exist in the school, they're going to just Andy's going to be allowed in there to get cleaned up. But they don't know that Father Bryce has just made a complete decision to shut everything down. Luckily, Sister Catherine is there when they come into the Sister Catherine, who has been questioning everything that Father Bryce does and has been questioning the lockdown. She's not a fan of the lockdown. She's like, what are we doing? This isn't the way we're supposed to be doing things. But she opens arms to Andy and goes to clean him up and get him well. And then Devin and Lexi are told to go to their rooms because we're on a lockdown. Meanwhile, we see that Glenda is still having nightmares. And Glenda texts Glenn to say, hey, I'm having nightmares. Are you having nightmares? Glenn texts back, like, yep. And this is what Mom got us. And shows them the doll of Glenn when they are combined. They're still not quite aware of what that all means, but they do know that they have some type of attachment to that doll. Glinda goes in the room where Kyle and Nika are, and they're watching the news. There's a gun still being held on the table from Kyle, just in case Nika turns into Chucky. I get a news piece on the TV that shows Jennifer Tilly is now on the run. She's the one at fugitive, as is Glenn and Glinda, because they found bodies on the home of Joey Pants and Meg Tilly, and now they're wanting for questioning. So now Nika kind of laughs and say, hey, you're a fugitive, and your mother, Jennifer Tilly and Tiffany, are her fugitives too, so we're now all in this together. So the cops can no longer be really an option for them to bring in. Kyle wants to see Chucky, so she initiates the blood to sort of Chucky to come out, just because she wants to see if he has any idea of where Andy is. And Chucky's, as far as that Chucky knows in that body, he knows that, one, he thought Kyle was dead. He's like, wait, you're still alive? There was one person in that room that exploded, and you're still here. But he also doesn't know where Andy is. Chucky insinuates that Glinda should kill. She gets a hold of the gun. She should kill Kyle, and she chooses not to. And then they bring Nika back. Glenda and Glinda have always been sort of teetering back and forth on whether or not to help their parents or not in their murder escapades, and so that continues on. And they continue their trip over to towards the school where the kids are. So that's pretty much all we get from them. That's going to be built for the last two kind of episodes as we get to the season finale of all of this. Back at the school, Sister Ruth is in full minion mode towards Buff Chucky. Buff Chucky's just out there eating wafers, the blood of the Christ that they give at communion. He's just popping them in like they're regular day crackers. It's kind of funny, and again, another thing that's just like, oh, I'm just going to piss on everything the religious folks do in this show. But she is kind of at the mercy and saying, "Hey, you've risen." She's washing him and taking care of him and treating him as her new deity. So much so that she takes him to Father Bryce's office, like, "Hey, this is Christ. He's risen. This is him." And Father Bryce's like, "Yo, let's go chat over on the side real quick. You've lost your damn mind, and I'm gonna put you on lockdown too to get this dial out of here, and you're on lockdown." But note, Father Bryce does clock that dial looks different than the dial that he saw earlier with Colonel, and different from the dial that he saw from Jake and Devin. So he's like, "Wait, what is happening? I told you to throw that dial away. Why are there so many freaking dials around here?" That changes quickly. We have a confrontation in the hallway, and it doesn't show how Buff Chucky and Colonel have sort of met all of a sudden, because we had just seen in the previous scene before that Sister Ruth had taken Buff Chucky with her, but all of a sudden Buff Chucky and the Colonel meet in the hallway, which is understandable because nobody else is in the hallway because everybody's on lockdown. But they go tit for tat. They're a mind versus the Buff mind, and the Colonel is doing his best Marlon Brando impersonation from Apocalypse Now. It's fantastic. It's great. But in that, he outsmarts the Buff Chucky because Buff Chucky has made it known and it's been seen that he loves those wafers, and those wafers end up being his downfall because Colonel puts arsenic in those, and then Buff Chucky is off the board. Seemed a lot easier than I think anybody sort of anticipated it to be. The kids sort of reconvene in the room while they're on lockdown. They have made it so that they can climb out of the window and kind of get to each other's window. So they all sort of congregate in Jake's room. Jake has chosen that room to be ground zero. Like, we're going to bring the Chuckies to us. They want us. We know this room. They're going to come to us, and we have the leg up here. A couple of notes in this. You can start sort of seeing that the good guy Chucky, or the good Chucky, may be playing a game a little bit. There's a fly that is going through, and he kills them with a pin and the blood, and immediately. And the boys see it, and they kind of like, "Well, you didn't vomit at the death." He's like, "Hey, still, the day is long." Kind of throws it away, but it sort of lets you know that, hey, wait a minute. The things that we have sort of laid in line for the good Chucky may not always be in place. And he may not. Devin might be right. And Jake, as cute as this Chucky has appeared, may have been playing a long con to get to a point where the Nika Chucky comes back and he can kind of get his form back. But as we go along, everybody sort of comes back into this room. Lexi is sort of freaking out. It's like, "Let's barricade the door." And Jake's like, "No. Let's bring the fight to us. Like, this is what we need to do." And Nadine, bless her heart, has weapons for everybody. She gives weapons to each person, and she gives little nunchucks to her godson, Chucky. It's like, "Hey, this is for you, so you can be like your godmother." The door swings open, and we see the Colonel coming in, but he's spouting out like the final scenes of a Nam picture, and he starts seeing a flyer helicopter. It's very tongue in cheek of like Apocalypse Now, like he's lost his marbles. But what we see is that there's been a shears put into the back of his head, and he has been stabbed and taken off the board. Therefore, 2 Chucky's gone. Now there's down only to 1 Chucky, and then the Chucky Prime coming with Nico. We learn who put the shears in is Andy. Andy walks in and sort of makes the claim that he is the one that has killed Colonel Chucky. Now, mind you, right before this, when Lexi starts freaking out a little bit, the good guy Chucky does another note. He takes pills over to Lexi and is like, "Hey," and he does it in a caring way. He's like, "Hey, do you need to feel better? Here, take these." Again, trying to get her off the wagon again. Sign number 2 that Chucky may have been playing a long con and is now sort of found a way to get underneath all of these. A bit of calamity ensues, and they are trying to get after the good guy Chucky. The good guy Chucky kind of goes up and is like freaked out. He's like, "Oh my God, what, people are dying? What's happening? I don't understand this." And he goes to sort of run away, and the other ones follow behind, but they get separated, and there's a way that, unfortunately, Jake, Lexi, and Devin can't quite get there. But Nadine is right behind them, and on them, and like being super godmother mode, like, "Hey, oh my God, are you okay in this?" And the good Chucky is at the on the top of the church at this enclave of a window, sort of a window. There's no glass, but there's an opening that is open, and he kind of like he asks for Nadine in a caring and loving way, and then he flips on a switch and throws Nadine out the window, who is then impaled by the statue that is below her. That broke my heart, because I think Don Mancini and the team here have done a very good job of building Nadine up through this entire season as sort of the sweetheart, the one that we sort of cared about. While she's the oddball, the oddity, we all sort of have fallen in love with her. And we had also just gotten to a point where Nadine and Lexi had sort of become a sister-mance, a cis-mance, not a bromance, a cis-mance, that's not the word. But the sisterhood has sort of been bonded between the two of them. And now it is taken away. And Devin, Lexi, and Jake finally do open up the door and make it up there. And Lexi freaks out. She sees Nadine fall and she's out of it. She's done. Some of this because she just took drugs, but it's a little bit of both. She's now lost the one person who she could talk to, because the boys don't talk to her in the way that Nadine did. And so the sort of role that she had been building towards and recovering and saying, hey, Nadine told me about her mom. Now she's gone. The one sweetheart about this. No more Narnia jokes for us. And Chucky kind of goes back to saying, oh my God, what did I do? Am I good? And so he's still sort of trying to play that game, but Devin and Jake are kind of on to it now. I would say that there's a very minimal chance that Chucky has any good in him. And I think that he has been playing the back and forth. Or there has been a moment, sort of how Nika gets triggered out of Nika mode and in Chucky mode by seeing blood. I think there may have been a moment at some point where Chucky saw blood, and he might have been good for a moment, and something happened that we didn't see that reverted him back, and he's just been playing the long con ever since. But it's unfortunate that we have lost Nadine, who was sort of the one good spirit. But I think some of the things why I always have a problem with shows like Stranger Things is they often don't kill any of the main cast. And while Nadine was not a part of the primary three, she had sort of become that. She had become that fourth wheel of that. And so she's the easiest, unfortunate to remove, and also the one that I think affects the audience the most. I feel like, yes, if Jake, Devin, or Lexi died, the endearment that we have sort of had with Nadine in this short season made her the one that kind of felt more of a gut punch than had you taken any of them off the board. Although I think Lexi, because of the problems she has, might have been like number two. But that's the episode. And it's a powerful one. It's fun. We have a very impactful death, very sad death, but it also is the one that moves the story along the most. We see Andy is back. We see that everybody's sort of heading towards, these final two episodes is heading towards that school. The kids are on lockdown. Nadine's dead, and Father Bryce has no idea what the hell is going on. He's just a man like, give me a sign. I'm going to keep highlighting this book of Bible. Somebody's going to give me a scripture that tells me what the hell is going on, because I don't know what's happening. But I'm having fun. I think these last two episodes, well, as much as I love this one, these last two episodes of Chucky are about to be nuts. But I do have to ask all of you, how are you taking this passing of Miss Nadine? Did it hit you as much as it hit me? Because it was like, no. Then I saw the writing on the wall. Once she got separated, I said, oh, she's gone. That's a wrap. But still didn't hurt any less. What did you guys think about this episode? What did you guys think about this death? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.